Get started. This is a presentation that I created a couple years ago when I felt very frustrated that there wasn't a presentation like this out there. As many of you know, getting into medical school is not an easy task, and there's a lot of bad information out there. It took me 2 years to get into medical school. I got denied by 25. And I decided, screw it, I'm going to make a presentation with all the information I know, all the advice and insight and the lessons that I learned, and I'm going to put it in here and I'm going to speak from the heart. So I'm going to go ahead and get started, and people may just join in as they come, and that's okay. So my name is Jake Goodman. You may know me from social media. I am a psychiatry resident doctor. Meaning that I completed pre-med medical school, and now I'm in my psychiatry residency, which is 4 years. I got a master's of business administration during my medical school. So I was in med school for 5 years. 4 of it was in the medical side and 1 year was in the business side. I started on social media about 1.5 years ago with the goal of trying to inspire future doctors and future healthcare professionals. I had really no social media experience before, never created any videos or anything like that, and just started picking up how to do it and was able to create this amazing community. And a lot of you guys may be following me or know me for weeks, months, or maybe since the beginning, the OG. So I appreciate everyone coming out. And lastly, I also create a lot of content around mental health advocacy because I believe that mental health is probably the most misunderstood topic in modern medicine. And I think so many people are struggling, myself included. I recently just put a post out on Instagram about my own mental health. And so I like to create content around destigmatizing mental health and inspiring people to seek treatment. All right, let's get started. So how to get into medical school. This is from my experience, going through the cycle twice, taking the Mcat twice. I've been through it. I know the grind. This is what worked for me. It may not work for you. This is just advice, not, you should take everything with a grain of salt. So what I say today is from my own personal experience. I'm no expert. I don't know anybody that is an expert. I'm as close to an expert as you can get because I've been through it. The only people that are better than me at this are people that took it, who went through the cycle 3 times, 4 times. They've really been through it and they know it. I learned from my failures. I learned from my successes. And most importantly, what I say here today does not represent the views of my school, my employer, the hospital that I work for. It is my views and my views only. I'm no expert. If you have questions during the presentation, I don't even know if I could. Okay, I do see a chat. You could throw it in the chat if you want, but I would ask if you leave it to the end. I'm going to do an open Q&A at the end. We'll answer all the questions at once, if that's cool with y'all. I want it to be pretty informal. I'm just going to speak from the heart. And awesome. Let's get into it. Picmonic, thank you so much for having me. Picmonic is a resource that I used all throughout medical school, and I would not be here today if I didn't have resources like Picmonic, because studying is very hard and grueling, and to have ways for me to memorize information that's not reading a book and highlighting is amazing. So Picmonic, thank you so much for having me, for hosting this. And at the end of this, stay to the very end because we're going to be giving out a 1-year free subscription to Picmonic. All right, let's get it. Topics. These are our topics we're going to go over today. We're going to try to cover everything. It's going to be a bit rapid fire. You might want to take some notes. Hang with me. Let's do it. All right. Number 1, GPA. I'll be just straight up. My GPA was a 3.75 by the time I finished with undergrad in college. I didn't start off that way. I started off with around a 3.4, 3.5 GPA. And I was able to work myself up, build myself up. For those of you that are here, you may be in high school, you may be in college, you may be post-college and attempting to get in. You may not even be pre-med, you may be pre-PA or something like that. So the GPA is going to range a little bit different for each type of person. Maybe a non-traditional person who is 5 years post-college and has a lot of work experience, you might not need a very high GPA because you have so many other extracurriculars. But I'm going to give you the average, 3.7, I believe, 3.71. That's the average. That's the average for people that are accepted and matriculated into medical school. So I know that's high. I know that's scary to some of you, but that doesn't mean you're not going to get in if you have a 3.5 GPA or lower. It just means you need to compensate. My biggest advice for the GPA, y'all, is learn from my mistakes. Don't try to cram in 15 hours every single semester. It is an absolute marathon, not a sprint. I think one of the biggest misconceptions in college is that you have to take a full course load every single semester. You do not. You have to work smart, work smarter, not harder. So that means occasionally I stayed in and did summer semesters. I worked on the side and took an extra class that allowed me to take 12 hours one semester, 13 hours one semester. But when I say hours, those are like specific class, like that's like 4 classes compared to 5. And just lightening my load a little bit allowed me to increase the GPA because I wasn't spread so thin. I also utilized some AP credits I had from high school. I utilized, I was in summer classes a lot, and I would recommend anyone that's serious about the GPA to consider summer classes too. Summer classes tend to be a little bit easier. Also, Heather, I think the Picmonic is unmuted, so it's giving me a little bit of echo. So if you could just mute that, or somebody is currently unmuted. So if you could just check on that. Okay. So one of the most important things I want to talk about is called the Amcas course classification guide. This is something I didn't know about till I was a junior, maybe a junior in college. But what it is a guide that you can look up on Google, totally free, that tells you what classes are science GPA and what classes are not science GPA. So for example, botany, the study of sorry guys, I think I might have been muted there for a second. I'm getting I can't see you guys or anything. So okay, perfect. I see everyone is throwing in the chat now. Let me know if you can hear me. Give me something in the chat so I know I'm not talking to nobody. Yes, okay, Ryan, yes. Yari, all right. I appreciate it. Yeah, keep me in touch in the chat, y'all, because I can't see you. It feels like I'm talking to nobody, but I appreciate all of this. I'll be looking at the chat too. All right. You got to know what classes count as science GPA and what classes don't. I didn't know that until I looked up this Amcas course classification guide. Started to realize that this thing existed and started boosting my science GPA by taking easier classes like botany, like horticulture, like poultry science counts as a science GPA class. At least it did for me. And I was able to take some of the easier classes to boost my science GPA because we all know we're all going to take hits from biochemistry, organic chemistry, etc. If you have a low GPA, it's not the end of the world. If you have a 2.5 GPA, it's going to be very difficult to get into medical school. If you have a 3.2, 3.3, it's possible. You gotta have a really good Mcat score. You gotta have other things that are going to help you out. If you have a very low GPA, I'd say below 3.0, you might want to consider taking a post-bac program, a post-bachelorette, post-bac. I think it's, I forget what the bac stands for. Google it, post-bac programs. I guess bachelor's, sorry. Post-bachelor's program. It's like an 18-month to 2-year program that's like a condensed version of pre-med that allows you to boost your GPA and is a method that I know that helped a lot of people get into medical school. So Google it, post-bac program. That's if you've completed college, you have a low GPA, you need a boost. Yep, that's how you spell it. I could only in my head visualize it. Thanks, Heather. All right, Mcat. Okay, I took the Mcat twice. I took the old Mcat before y'all, when y'all were probably in high school, middle school, whatever, I ended up taking the old MCAT. It was a 3-hour test. It's now like a 7.5-hour test. I didn't do very well. I got a 27 on the first time that I took it. That equates to like probably a 502. It's not bad by any means, but it wasn't enough to get me into medical school. I tried to just stick with it anyway. I applied and it didn't work out for me. As you know, I got denied by every school I applied to. But I learned a lot along the way, and I'm going to share that with you now. So when to take the MCAT, I tried to cram it in my spring semester of junior year, and I think it was too much. I was taking a full course load. I was doing research. I was involved in extracurriculars. It was really overwhelming, and I didn't think I gave myself adequate time to study for the thing. If I had to go back in time, I mean, damn, I wouldn't change a thing really if I think about it. But if I was advising, one of you when to take this thing, I'd probably take it in the summer. I'd probably take it in the summer between junior year and senior year. Really give yourself that time when you're not slammed with, a full course load and everything going on in the semester. It's different for everybody, and there's pros and cons to both. But I would probably take it when you have the adequate time. 4 months, I think, is pretty good. 5 months, maybe. I wouldn't go beyond 6. I wouldn't go below 2. I mean, that's not enough time. Resources, you got to find what works for you. When I was going through it, there wasn't as many resources. Oh, and by the way, I just want to make sure I sum up my whole story. So I took the new MCAT a year later, and my score increased to a 510. I got a 510 the second time I took the MCAT. Once I got that score, all those doors that previously were slammed in my face opened. And a 510 got me interviews and got me accepted to medical school, amongst other things. A 510 is like maybe the 78th percentile, if I remember correctly, 78th to 80th percentile. So I improved probably over 20 percentile. And I did that by investing in quality resources and doing a lot more active studying versus passive studying. I did a lot more practice questions the second time around, and less reading, less highlighting, more active learning. And that's where resources like Picmonic come in. That's where resources like Anki comes in. Anki, is a smart flashcard app. A lot of this stuff didn't really exist when I was going through it, or it existed in kind of like prehistoric ways. It wasn't refined. But over the years, people got better and better at making resources. I don't even think UWorld was available when I was going through it. UWorld is just a question bank. So basically, there's a million resources out there. I'll tell you what I used in medical school. I used Anki, I used Picmonic, I used UWorld, I used First Aid. And I'm not sure what resources are currently available for the MCAT, but I'd give them a good look and invest in 2 resources, 3 max. At this level, you don't want to do resource overload. You want to really focus in on the ones that are proven. Okay, it's a short-term sacrifice. It's a crappy time. There is no doubt about that. I know. I've been through it. It's brutal, especially when you're in college and all your friends are out. You're a junior or senior by the time you take the thing, and your friends are landing jobs in business and they're getting sign-on bonuses, and you're still in the freaking library studying for this thing. I know it sucks. It sucks. It's a short-term sacrifice and it's a long-term reward. I never look back on my hundreds, maybe thousands, if I don't know, hundreds of hours in the library studying for this thing. I never look back and regret that time, because now I'm a doctor. It all worked out for me. There are good days and bad days of being a doctor. As many of you know that follow me, I don't glamorize medicine. Medicine is what it is. It's amazing, but there are pros and cons. But I don't regret the time I spent studying for this thing, and neither will you. It's really important to rest as well. First time I burned out, I was studying 7 days a week, no rest. I was studying for 4 months, 7 days a week. Maybe I took 1 or 2 days off. It was too much. Your brain is a muscle. You have to allow it to rest. You can't bench press every single day. You can't do curls every single day and expect to see results. You can't run. If you're running a marathon, you can't run 20 miles every single day. You're going to burn out. You need rest. All right, let's keep moving. Extracurriculars and leadership. Very important. You want to invest in quality extracurriculars. So I'll give you an example. So if I was on a med school admissions committee and I was looking at two applicants, one applicant had one club that they were in, and they were the president of the club. Before that, they were the treasurer of the club. They expanded the club to allow more physicians to come speak at it. They did X, Y, Z, very involved, whatever. Second person involved in 7 clubs, but no leadership positions in any of them, not able to talk about the clubs themselves. I would accept the person that has the one club because they showed that they were very much into it. They were involved in leadership position. Leadership is very important to show med school admission committees that you're a leader. Being a physician, you're a leader. You're a leader every single day, and you need to start proving that. So I would really recommend you to jump into 1 or 2 of these clubs and get really invested. And it does not have to be a medical club. It's nice if it is, but I was involved in a tennis club at the University of Georgia where I went to college, teaching tennis lessons to special needs children, children with special needs, as well as elementary school students who were disadvantaged youth, and trying to teach them a really cool sport that they may not have the sort of financial ability to afford. It was really cool, like providing that to them and mentoring this group, and you really got to know them over the years. I became the recruitment chair. I did XYZ. Really got invested in the organization, and I was able to talk about that during interviews. So that was a tennis club. It wasn't a medical club. It worked for me. Leadership, when you become a leader in one of these organizations, it doesn't have to be in college. This could be Boy Scouts, Girl Scouts. It could be something, I don't know, just something in your community, right? Like figure out something that you're interested in and try to become a leader. And when you do, implement actual changes. It's important to know, like these programs want to know what you did. Did you just sit there and do nothing? Or did you, increase the number of people in the club by 40% and increase the financial budget by 50%, allowing the club to do X, Y, Z? You know what I mean? Implement changes. You don't want to do it for the resume. I've done many things in my life for the resume. I'm not going to lie to you. I know what it's like to be a pre-med. I know what it's like to be a med student. A lot of things you end up doing for your resume. But as I look back on my career so far, the things that I do, I wouldn't necessarily say regret, but that I look upon with the less satisfied feeling is the things that I did strictly for the resume. The things that I did that was actually passionate about, I'm still able to talk about now, and I'm glad I did them, and it shines through in an interview. So really invest in the things that make you happy, whether that's dance club, meditation club, whatever it is. AMSA, any of those medical organizations. Golden ticket. All right. If you can start an organization or club at your school or in your community, in my opinion, that's a golden ticket. That's like, I was involved in starting an organization it was only in medical school, but I talked about it in my residency interviews. It was a major part. It was a major theme of my residency interviews. It shows immense leadership skills. So if there's something lacking in your community or your school, you can try to create that club or organization. And it's an amazing talking point for interviews. And it's great for your application. Okay, shadowing. Shadowing is this point might be kind of void now with COVID, and I don't even know, honestly, and maybe you can throw this in the chat. Are they even letting you shadow at this point? Because when I was going through it, shadowing was easy, at least way easier than it is now. So I don't know. It's hard to get into the hospitals. Okay. So honestly, guys, I don't know what it's going to be like for this year and 3 years into the future. Who knows? But if you can shadow, I think it's really important, because you may figure out, whoa, I actually don't want to be a physician. This seems way too stressful for me, because you never know until you go experience it yourself. You might go to the operating room and pass out within 3 seconds and be like, wow, I never want to be a surgeon. That was horrible. So it's important to kind of know if you want to do it. And then also it allows you to network and potentially get a letter of recommendation, which I'll talk about in a second, from a physician that you shadow. One of my biggest mistakes, I guess, how do you shadow? I would reach out to physicians that you know. I mean, I only really knew one or two physicians growing up. One was my pediatrician and one was a friend's father. But you may not know any physicians or, and then that's okay. But if you know anybody in healthcare, if you have any friends or family that's works in a hospital, see if they know any physicians that would allow you to shadow them, whether it's a hospital or an office. I saw someone posted something about being in an office. It's just those connections, even if you could just come for a couple of days or a couple of hours just to see what it's like. My biggest mistake is that I only shadowed primary care physicians. I would say this would be less of a mistake now that shadowing seems so much more difficult. But, when I applied to medical school, I was interested in potentially doing something in surgery, and they slammed me in the interviews. They slammed me because they said, "What, you have only shadowed primary care doctor, or you, sorry, you, let me rephrase that. I was interested in surgical subspecialties. I only shadowed surgical subspecialties. I didn't shadow primary care. Let me make sure that I convey that. I did not shadow primary care. I only shadowed surgical subspecialties. That was a mistake. That was a mistake because many medical schools want to see that you're open to the idea of primary care, even if it's not something you want to do. There's a massive primary care shortage in the United States. And by only shadowing orthopedic surgery and vascular surgery, I don't think you're showing the medical schools how open you are to this massively needed field in medicine. So I would advise you to shadow primary care if you have the opportunity. That was one of the reasons why I think I did not get into medical school the first time around. So I want to make that very clear. Try to shadow primary care. Networking, it's a huge way to network and gain connections. You never know who can reach out for you when you're applying. If they went to a medical school you want to apply to, it could be a simple email that they send and all of a sudden you have an interview. Don't for a second think that medicine is not a field that connections matter. Medicine is just like business and everything else where connections matter. And if you weren't born, with a mom and dad who are physicians, you gotta find somebody who is a physician in some capacity to get to know them and network with them and network with their connections. Should I still shout out primary care even if I don't want to go into it? Yeah, I think you should. Because you never know. Your mind changes too. I wanted to be a plastic surgeon. What am I now? So things change over time. I went and realized, whoa, plastic surgery is 6 years, maybe 7 with a research year. And I hate the operating room. Thought I liked it when I was shadowing, then it's not for me. So I would definitely shadow primary care. Okay. COVID. Yeah, we kind of talked about that. I'm not quite sure what to do there or how it's going to be different. All right. Research. And yeah, scribing and healthcare related work, I believe can count as shadowing, but it might be considered healthcare experience. I'm not quite sure. There's a little bit of overlap there and things have changed with shadowing. Research, is it required? No, it's not required. I actually really despise research. Research was a horrible thing for me in both pre-med and medical school. It was miserable for me. I'm not like that. My fiance is, she's very much into research. She's an internal medicine resident and she has a ton of publications and that brings her happiness and passion. It doesn't bring me happiness or passion. And I know I said you shouldn't do things just for the resume, but if you're going to do one thing for the resume, I'd recommend it's research. Because you don't need a publication. You don't need to get a publication in the Journal of American Medical, JAMA, whatever. You don't need to get this incredible publication. You don't need any publications. But a publication means you get your name in a journal, your research gets published. It's like a big deal. You don't need that. You just need a research experience at this level. You need to be involved in research. Med schools like to see that you understand what research is and why it's important, and you learn some of the research methods. So if you find somebody that does research at your school or in your community, I just started going around to my professors at the end of class. Hey, doctor, whatever. I'm interested in getting into research. Do you or any of your colleagues have any projects that you're working on? I'd love to get involved. And that's all it took. And I got involved in a research project. I couldn't even tell you what it was. It was something like studying the genetic mutations in a mushroom that affects cows. I swear to God, it was something like so arbitrary that I can't even recall it to this day. But it gave me research experience, and it got me a letter of recommendation because I worked my ass off in the research. It gave me class credit. Some research counts as class credit, so I got an A in that class, and it's science GPA. I got a letter of recommendation. And I didn't get a publication, but I got the experience. So it's a potential to get 4 in 1. Okay. Letters of recommendation. I would advise you to start early when you start thinking of letters of recommendation. They're important, really important. I think underrated. And I waited too long. I waited till my junior year, second semester to even start my letters of recommendation. I scrambled. I went back to some English teacher I had first year, like, what's up? Hey, do you remember me? I'm Jake. She's like, no, I don't remember you. I'm not going to write you a letter of recommendation. That's a true story. It was very embarrassing, but I'm thankful that she did that because she probably would have written me a poor letter of recommendation. So I would really advise you to start early. If you have professors or coaches or, who else? Research advisors, somebody that can vouch for your work ethic, ask for a letter of recommendation. You definitely need some from science professors. So if you got an A in biochemistry or an A in organic chemistry or something like that, even if you didn't, if you worked your butt off and they could vouch for you, I would ask for a letter of recommendation from them. Hey, Dr. Blah, blah, blah. It's been great working with you this semester or last semester. I am in the process of applying to medical school. I really liked X, Y, and Z about your class. And I would be honored if you would consider writing me a letter of recommendation. It can be a little awkward. I know I've asked for many of these in my life, but you need them. So I would start early. Letters to avoid. I would avoid any friends. I would avoid any like public figures. People like you don't want, let's say your uncle is like the president's doctor. I wouldn't do that. I think it's a little pretentious. I'd be careful. We're in 2021, so you got to think pretty PC. Fraternity, sorority kind of leadership for a letter of recommendation, I probably would advise against. And it depends. I mean, it depends. Everything depends. But when in doubt, I would probably err on the side of safety. Okay. How to ask for a letter. I kind of already went over that. All right, let's keep it moving. Personal statement. This is the most important essay of your entire life. This is essentially what you submit when you apply to medical school, telling your story. Why you? Why medicine? Why do you want to be a doctor? And it's not to help people. It may be, but you better not write that, and you better not talk about that in your interview because they will tear you to shreds. I promise you. So that's, if you're hearing me right now and you're stressing out because you don't know exactly why you want to be a doctor, don't worry about it. You got time to figure this out. You got to figure it out. You're writing a story on a personal statement. I forget the exact character amount. What comes to my head is like 5,180 or something like that. If anybody knows the exact character amount in the personal statement, throw it in the chat, please. I think it's around 5,000. It's not a lot, right? It's oh, nice. I was pretty close. It's been years too. 5,300. All right. It sounds like a lot, but it's not. It's like page and a half, 2 pages. I don't really remember, but it's not that much. And you want to be really concise with it. You don't have to do for 5,300. You could do 4,000. But you want to really tell your story. have a hook in the beginning of the personal statement. Tell your story. Like, don't say, hi, I want to be a doctor because blah, blah. No, write like you're writing a story. What was the first time you got exposed to medicine? Have you ever seen someone really struggle? Have you ever seen anyone pass away or heard of anyone passing away? Have you ever seen a baby born? Have you ever seen, what is your experience with medicine? Did you go to the doctor and see this A, B, or C? Did you have a doctor tell you a diagnosis? Were you ever sick? Were a family member ever sick? Make it personal. Make it personal. Put yourself in the shoes of the reader too. Who do you all think are reading these things? Typically, it's physicians. After a long day in the clinic, they come home, they open up their stack of personal statements because they're on the admission committee. And if they see something that's not a good story and it has errors and it has literally there are words that are incorrectly spelled, you're done. They're going to throw it away. There's medical school is a supply demand mismatch. There is too much demand and not enough supply. So I'm proof of that. I got denied by every school I applied to. I had a good GPA. I had an okay Mcat. I had good extracurriculars. It's the supply demand mismatch, and you can't do anything to hurt yourself. You have to do everything to help yourself. Start early. I think it took me 3 to 4 months before I finished my personal statement. It can be done in shorter time. It can be done in a month, but you want to go through multiple drafts of this thing. You want to bring in the experts. I'd bring in 3 to 4 people over this time period to help you with it, to help you revise it. Bring in, if you have someone in your school who's like an advisor, bring them in. Tell the story of why medicine, why you. Don't let too many people see your personal statement. It's very personal, and it's also, you don't want too many cooks in the kitchen. All right. I think we're doing good here on time. School selection. So when you eventually apply to medical school, you're going to have 2 options: early decision, what I call early decision prison, or cast a wide, fragile net. Okay, so if you've gone through it, you know what I mean. If this may be foreign to you, but when you apply to medical school, you have the option to apply early decision. And that means you apply to one school, just one. Everyone else, they're casting a wide, fragile net. They're applying to 15, 20, 25. You're applying to one. Why would you do that? Because it increases your chances of getting into that one. They may interview 50 people for early decision and accept 25. That's 50% acceptance rate. May sound low, but it's actually extraordinarily high. Most med school acceptance rates are probably 5%, if not less. Very low, very low. So it increases your chances of getting in. But you can't apply to any other school until like October. That's when they release you. I don't have the exact date, but I fell for that trap. I'm not saying it's a trap. It works for some people. It didn't work for me twice. So I advise against it. You may be thinking, oh, I've got this one in the bag. I already know the admissions committee over there. I know doctors. I knew people over there too, and it didn't work out for me. So I actually say, I think you should cast a wide, fragile net, put all your eggs in different baskets and see what happens. Choosing programs. There's no such thing as a backup. There's no such thing as a backup medical school these days. To get into medical school is an immense achievement. One of the highest achievements you could possibly make in the educational system in the United States. It is the most difficult school to get into. Some PhD programs are difficult. Law school can be difficult, but med school is a different beast. If you get into medical school, you've won. The dropout rate for medical school is very low. Once you're in, you're kind of in. It's very difficult after that. Do not get me wrong, but you're sitting pretty once you get in. The hard part is getting in. So I would have your reach schools, the schools you think you can get into, and the schools that your stats are better than, because you don't want to go through a whole cycle and not get into any schools. If you do, happened to me, it's okay. Utilize all your connections when you apply, all your connections. If you have anybody that you know that went to one of these schools that you applied to, hit them up. Hey, Dr. Smith, I know, it's been about a year since we talked last. I just want to let you know I applied to the medical school of blank, and I'm really looking forward to the opportunity of potentially interviewing there. I know you went there. If you have any advice for me about, how to get an interview or anything like that, I'd really appreciate it. Literally make the call. It might be awkward, but you'd be surprised. A simple connection can get you an interview. And once you get an interview, everyone's on the same field. And all you got to do is crush the interview. I'll talk about that in a second, and then we'll do a Q&A. I think I'm almost done with this overall presentation. Secondaries, let me get some water. I've been talking nonstop. How are y'all enjoying this presentation? It's hard for me to be over Zoom like this because I can't see you, and I'm getting little to no like reciprocal feedback. But if you're having a good time and you're learning a lot, let me know so I can get a little bit hyped, because I am very passionate about this. Awesome. Okay. Yes. AJ, Adrian, Daniel, Eric. Awesome. I appreciate it, y'all. Okay. Also, I'm on like 3.5 hours of sleep. So I appreciate it. Residency can be very difficult. Last night was a particularly challenging night, but I'm here and I'm passionate about this, and let's keep it moving. All right. Connections. We talked about that. Secondaries. Secondaries are these ridiculous essays that medical schools will send to you to essentially, in my mind, get more money out of you. Y'all know I expose parts of the medical system whenever I can on social media. At some point, I'm going to expose the crap out of this. Secondaries are total BS. It's an additional essay that you have to send in, and it costs money to send in. I think I don't remember the exact amount, but even if it's $100 or $50 and you apply to 25 med school, that's thousands of dollars that you don't have as a pre-med. It really sucks. It's the worst. And I applied for 2 years. You know how many secondaries I sent in? 50. And Harvard Medical School will send you a secondary even if you have no chance of getting in. I was getting secondaries from Hopkins thinking, oh, I've got a shot. Hopkins didn't give a crap about me. No offense. I mean, Hopkins, maybe they did, but I don't think so. I mean, they never really offered me an interview. So anyway, no bad blood. Secondaries, you just got to crank them out, get them back quickly. 2 to 3 days is what I'd recommend. Crank out these essays, have templates set up, because a lot of these secondaries are the same. They'll ask you the same type of questions. Copy, paste, change a few things, send it out. If you've applied and you haven't heard anything and it's been a little while, send updates. My fiance, who went to the same medical school as me, heard nothing about her application for months and months and months and months. She sent an update, and an update could be something like this. Hi, Dr. blah, blah, blah. My name is Jake Goodman. I wanted to check back in with you regarding my application and some updates over the summer. Over the last few months, I've been able to volunteer here, complete my research here, and begin working my job as an ophthalmology technician. In the process, I've increased my healthcare experience. I've done A, B, and C, and I'm really looking forward to the opportunity to potentially interview at your program. If you need any more information from me, or if you'd like to set up a time to chat, I'd be honored. I'm going off the top of the head here, so you can make it a little better when it comes down to it. But send updates. You have nothing to lose and everything to gain. All right, interviewing. This is the most nerve-wracking thing ever. Nerve-wracking is an understatement. You're fighting. It feels like you're fighting for your life, because you spent a majority of your life grinding in college and high school to get here, and now you're here, and you're, at least before COVID, it was in person, and you're standing there and you look to the left and there's some person who went to some incredible college, and you're like, and then you look to your right and there's somebody who was a Army Ranger for 10 years and started a nonprofit, and you feel like very much imposter syndrome. But stand proud. They invited you for a reason. Be proud of the school you went to, and be proud of your resume and who you are, and fight for yourself when you get in there. Really be yourself. My first time I applied, or I got an interview, my first ever interview for medical school, which I tanked, was horrible. I was not really myself. I was trying to be what the school wanted me to be. At least that's how I felt at the time. The school had a specific mission statement. I was trying to meet that mission statement. I was trying to to be who they wanted me to be and not be myself. And I actually got feedback about that, like maybe a year later, saying that I wasn't, they didn't see me as who they thought they were going to interview, or something along those lines. And that stuck with me. So now look, if you're going to get denied, at least get denied being yourself. If yourself is the kind of person that, is trying to go to the bar every single night and is more interested in that than medical school, don't be yourself. Be what they want you to be. No offense to anyone that's trying to go to the bar every night, but you got to be professional. I don't mean to say like, just totally chill out and be how you would around friends, but be the most professional version of yourself. Okay, over prepare, do mock interviews like crazy, do interviews about a week or two in advance, start doing mock interviews. I had like the top 50 questions down pat. What are your if I asked you right now, what are your 3 biggest strengths? You need to be able to answer that question, because what if you get in, I'm not saying, don't freak out about this unless you have an interview in 2 weeks. But you don't need to know this information now, but I want to prepare you. This is the kind of stuff you need to know. What's your biggest weakness, and what have you done to work on it? Why do you want to be a physician? So what kind of physician do you want to be? Give me an example of a time you were in a group and the group dynamic became negative. What did you do to address it? You'll get some wild questions. And, I got a question one time in my residency interview: go find something around your house and teach it to me in 2 minutes. So I ran and grabbed my guitar and I taught chords. I'm not saying you got to prepare for that type of question. You got to think on your feet when it comes down to it, but be prepared. Why do you want to be a doctor? Have that question down. I can't answer that for you. I'm sorry. You have to figure that out yourself. Everyone you see on that interview day is interviewing you. Every single person, the front staff, the janitor, everybody's interviewing. Don't ever let your guard down. Show enormous interest in the program. Research the crap out of it beforehand. Know the program better than they know the program. Send a handwritten card afterwards. Email is okay. Handwritten card's better. Have fun. It's kind of a once in a lifetime thing. Closing thoughts. Social media. Y'all know I'm on social media. Social media was a huge component of me getting into residency. I got interviews that I believe were way out of my league because of social media and how I branded myself on there. And I think if you use social media correctly, it can be beneficial for your application. It could also harm you. If you have a more laxed kind of public account of you doing things that schools may not want to see. So my advice is to get off social media. If you if you don't have a professional account, get off social media when you apply. It doesn't matter before you apply. When you apply and your application's in and they're reviewing you, you better believe they're going to look you up. So I would make your social media private. You don't have to delete it or anything. Okay, sorry. So the medical students were just texting me about the rotation on Monday. That's a cool feeling, y'all, when you finally are in my shoes and now you have med students reaching out and saying, I'm really excited to work with you, blah, blah, blah. Keep grinding. It's going to work. What if I don't get in? If you don't get in, it's okay. I did not get in the first time. I got denied by so many schools. It took me 2 years. It's the Mcat twice. I know it's worth it. I know how bad it sucks, but it's worth it if you keep going. I would have gone one more time. I would have gone 3 years. That's how much I believe in this dream. You got to believe in yourself. Even if it feels like no one else believes in you and you feel like you're on your own, which it can be very isolating in college, especially if your friends aren't pre-med, and you feel like you may be wasting these years. I promise you it's worth it. I promise you it's worth it. Don't give up. Even if you don't get in, don't give up and believe in yourself. All right. Thank you guys. This was really fun. I'm going to just, that's the end of the presentation. I know we've got some time here. I think we're doing pretty good on time. I really appreciate everyone coming out. I know it was just rapid fire, but I was trying to give y'all everything I had. So I wanna open the floor up to questions, and I don't know if I should do it via chat, or I guess I can't really see y'all anyway. Or maybe I'm gonna stop sharing the screen. That's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna pause share. So I'm gonna stop share. That's what I'm gonna do. Also, I'm going to go ahead now and, okay, where's all these participants? So weird. Oh, there's attendees. Okay, gotcha. I'm going to go ahead now and announce the winner of the Picmonic giveaway. So I'm just chatting with Heather now, who did a random number generator. And it looks like Emma Benshaw, if you were listening to this right now, you won. You got a 1-year subscription to Picmonic. And from experience, that's going to be really helpful for you. I've used Picmonic a lot throughout medical school, and I wish I had it when I was a pre-med. For those of you that didn't win, no worries. I'm going to do another giveaway on my Instagram this week, either Thursday or Friday, depending on when I have time to post. So, yep, I see Emma, you're very excited. Congratulations. And if you didn't win, I'm going to do another giveaway on either Thursday or Friday of this week, so you can win another free subscription. Okay, let's get into some questions here. So I'm going to scroll up. If I missed your question, I'm sorry. Just throw it back in the chat. I'm going to try to do a kind of rapid fire stuff here. Let me chug some water first. All right. What advice do you have for reapplicants and writing the replicate essay? Great question. Take your personal statement, copy it over, take out the parts. In any essay, there's always some parts that can be deleted, that are a little fluff, that are not necessary. Take them out, add in a final paragraph of what you learned in your year of your gap year, your year of reapplying, what you learned. Be humble and update them with the new things that you've got going on. You don't want to just copy and paste the same essay. Bring the good parts of it and add in an additional. Otherwise, apply to the same schools you applied to before. I would say you got a better chance of getting in the second time around, and maybe even apply to more. I think I applied to 25 my second time. What can high schoolers start doing to help the whole process? In high school, make it easy for yourself. Only thing you got to worry about right now is your GPA and your test score, either your ACT, SAT, whatever. I know that's kind of becoming less and less important. I know California kind of got away with some of those, and the US might follow, but unfortunately, these tests are always going to be important. So I would really recommend focusing hard on them. By the way, y'all, I took the SAT 3 times. I took the SAT 3 times. I took the ACT, and my score was so poor, I didn't even submit it to schools. So I'm not a great test taker, but I worked my butt off and eventually got the score that I needed. All right. So SAT and GPA, that's all you got to worry about right now in high school. Maybe some extracurriculars too. The only thing you should really be thinking about in terms of medicine as a high schooler is, let me get into the best college I can that'll give me the best opportunity to get into medical school. Okay. What's your opinion on specials master's programs? Yeah, I mean, the special master's programs is definitely an idea to do if you think you need a little boost on your resume before getting into medical school, or you have a specific passion in something. I have a master's in business administration, but I got that in medical school. I didn't need that to get into medical school, but it works for some people. So do you recommend a 3.5 GPA, take a post-bac or graduate programs? Kim, that's a good question. It's kind of on the border. I don't want to answer that because I'm not sure. This is an area that I'm a little weak on. I'd say 3.6 is worth it. I think you could do it, but I would talk to somebody else. I would talk to one of your advisors at school and get a second opinion. I think you could do it. I don't know the rest of your application, but a 3.5 GPA is good. It's good. It's not above the average, but it's good. I think you'll be okay, but I don't want to steer you wrong. So I would talk to someone else about that. Can you still get into medicine if you fail a unit subject in college? Yes, you can. Multiple is not going to look good, but failing one class, retaking it the next semester and getting a B+, good. Address the red flag in your application though. What a failure in a class is considered a red flag. Red flags won't prevent you from getting into medical school. I would say red flags are things like failed classes, years off, legal issues. I I know many people that have gotten to the highest level in medicine with these so-called red flags. All you got to do, address it, say what you learned about it, move on. Don't perseverate on it. Why did you want to be a doctor? Oh, Will Johnson, you're trying to get you're trying to get my answer of why I wanted to be a doctor. I mean, I'll tell you why I want to be a doctor, but it's not what I told, interviewers and stuff. You got to have a good answer for that. For me, it was just like, I always wanted to be since I was like 5 or 6. It was a career that was most interesting to me. It's constantly evolving. It's not like a stagnant thing where you go into work and clock in every day. Like the treatment is consistently evolving. It's science-based. I've always loved science. It has amazing career longevity from a financial standpoint. There's always a need for physicians. You don't have to worry about, losing your job. And if you do, you'll get another one. I'm passionate about helping people through very difficult and dark times, especially when they're at like the rock bottom. So these are things that I touched on some of those things when I was interviewing, but you got to figure that out for yourself. What advice do you have for career changers? Ooh, good question, Tyler. Career change, you might want to consider a post-bac program. I don't know what, maybe not. I don't know what your experience was like, what your GPA and MCAT and kind of stuff. But I think a lot of people that were coming from accounting or some finance, they took a post-bac program to kind of get back in the swing of things, take the MCAT, whatever. Can you attend nursing school and then apply to med school, or is it better to choose a science degree for undergrad? I would choose a science degree for undergrad. I don't know anyone that went to nursing school and med school. It's possible, but rare. Okay. Oh, amazing. I'm just seeing that Picmonic team is dropping a link for 30% off right now. It's incredible. Amazing. Thank you for doing that, Picmonic. Any advice on how to keep a good mindset during application season? Heather, just text me to remind me at what time this is wrapping up. Oh, I see now. I see it from earlier. All right, y'all. I'm going to do 10 more minutes of questions. If you have to leave, by all means, don't feel like you have to stay. But I just want to make sure I can answer as many questions as I can here in the next 10 minutes. Any advice on keeping a good mindset during application season while retaking the MCAT? It's been tough for me. I know, Sophia. Like, I felt the same way. What was really important for me the second time taking the test was to really work, not just on the academic part, making sure your resources are good and your schedule is good, but also working on like the other part of your life, which is like your happiness and make sure you're talking to family and talking to friends, making sure you're scheduling the rest, making sure you don't burn out, staying balanced throughout the whole thing. I think you would be happier with yourself if you scored a good score with a healthy mindset and mental health than if you scored a good score, but you burn yourself out beyond belief and you like crawl through the finish line. So I think that's really important when you take that test, is to make sure that you're enjoying other parts of your life, because the MCAT is just part of your life. It's not your whole life. I know it feels like that right now, but it's not. What is your opinion on being a medical scribe for some experience on top of being an EMT? Absolutely. Amazing experience. My fiance was an EMT. She is now an internal medicine physician. If I haven't done anything and graduate this December, should I apply in 2022 or 2023? If you need more time, I'd push it back. There's no rush. Currently in a post-bac master's in biomedical science program. I have a 3.3 GPA, and assuming I maintain all A's in this master's, would a 5.10 be reasonable range to shoot for the MCAT? Absolutely. I got a 5.10. 5.10. If you get a 5.10 on the MCAT and you don't get into medical school, I think it's pretty rare. You can actually look up those stats on like AMSA or Amcas or whatever. Pretty rare. A 5.10 on the MCAT is kind of what I see as like the golden ticket. All right. As a non-trad student, would you recommend to ask previous employment supervisors for letters of recommendation? Oh, hell yeah. Now, if it was 20 years ago, 10 years ago, no. In the last 5 years, yeah. If they can attest to your work experience, 100%. For letters of rec, should you ask professors that you only got A's from? No. I got a letter of recommendation from a professor I got a B from, but they really knew me and they could attest to my work ethic. It's all about attesting to your work ethic. All right. I'm 28 and an environmental engineer, but I'm interested in medicine. What do you think my first step towards becoming a doctor should be? It's definitely possible. I know many people that have made late change careers. I knew professional ballerina that moved to the States in her 30s to attend a post-bac program and go to medical school. I know people that have joined the Army for 10 years and are now doctors. So I would actually look into a post-bac program. That gets you all the requirements you need. They really take care of you, get you a good MCAT score by preparing you. I look into the post-bac programs. How do you deal with the stress workload in medical school versus pre-med? I mean, it's really hard, medical school is incredibly stressful. Residency is even more stressful. I'm not going to lie to you. The stress only increases. So you got to know yourself, know what works for you, know when to call in the reinforcements. When I say that, I mean, like, if you're so overwhelmed, you've hit a wall, you think you might be burned out or experiencing mental health issues. There's nothing wrong with reaching out and getting some additional assistance, and knowing when it's past the point of getting through it. It's a long journey, and you don't want to just say, if I could just get through tomorrow, if I can just get through the next rotation. I know it can feel like that, but just kind of knowing yourself, finding hobbies, maintaining those hobbies throughout medical school. I played soccer every Friday for 4 years. I went out with my friends twice a month. You got to find those things that bring you happiness and joy. I was involved in research during my first year of college, and I'll be taking a gap year. Would that be enough of research experience, or would it be too far away? Should I do more research? That's another question I don't feel entirely comfortable answering, because it's kind of on the borderline between like 5 years-ish time, which I think is kind of like, I stopped sharing stuff from 5 years ago. I would talk to someone in your college about that. I don't want to give you the wrong answer. Sam, how do you tackle dealing with the Posture Syndrome and burnout during pre-med? I know you got to surround yourself with like-minded people that are also in the grind with you, and talk about the imposter syndrome, and the real people out there will relate to you and be like, yeah, I feel like that too. And you feel a lot better when you know you're not alone. So many people have it, and they don't mention it. Does your undergrad college major to get into medical school? Does your undergrad college matter to get into med school? Yes and no. It matters less than people think, but it matters. Harvard versus Trump University, Harvard is going to look a lot better. UGA, University of Florida, right? Like, no. It matters, but it doesn't matter to the extent that people chalk it up. And what's more important than anything is that a lot of people from that undergrad got to medical school. I wouldn't recommend going to a college in which no people in the graduating class went to medical school last year. I haven't gotten involved very much in clubs and activities. I'm a fourth year. Should I still consider applying this year's cycle? Yeah. And I would try to get involved in something, Lee, just like, or Leah, I might have pronounced that incorrectly. I'd try to get involved in something with the time that you have. It could be something small. And also think back over the last couple of years. Was there anything that you did that would be considered extracurricular that may not be like textbook extracurricular? Were you involved in any like blood drives, bone marrow? Were you involved in any sports? We could talk about that. I'm not involved in many clubs, but I do a ton of research and have leadership positions outside of school. Yeah, no, that's not concerning. I think I might have put too much emphasis on the clubs in this talk. I wouldn't worry about, if you're not involved in many clubs, it's fine. It's just that you're involved in extracurriculars. All right, I'm gonna answer 3 more questions, y'all. Okay, what were your extracurricular and volunteer hours like? Volunteer hours, I can't remember off the top of my head. A couple hundred, right? Like, I don't really know. It's been too long. I'd say a couple hundred over 4 years. I really don't remember, to be honest with you. Could have been 500. It could have been 200. But it was, I think, in the hundreds. And I was involved in that tennis club. I was involved in, I think, 2 other clubs or organizations over the 4-year period. Like, I volunteered at a hospital. I did some other things. I can't really remember. But the main one was the tennis club. How med schools calculate the GPA? Science GPA, non-science GPA, regular GPA. The regular GPA and the science GPA matter the most. All right, last question here. I'm in grade 12 in high school. I'm wondering if I should do or take anything specific to use it as an advantage. Nope. If you're watching this and you're in high school, you are already winning. You're already way ahead of the pack. You're already thinking about med school and you're only in high school. So you're already doing an amazing job. My advice for you is just focus on what makes you happy now. Focus on the things right in front of you. Don't worry so much about 5 years from now. Worry about getting into a good college, the best college for you. Also a college that won't get you in massive debt before you start medical school, because med school will get you in massive debt. And so if you have the option between University of Georgia and you're an in-state resident and it's, $5,000 a year, or fancy private school in the next state that you might have to take out a loan for, that's $25,000 a year, that's as good or better, I'd stick with the state school. I'd keep the debt as low as possible before you get into medical school, because you don't want to have $800,000 of debt. All right, y'all, I'm going to call it here. This has been a really amazing opportunity. I want to thank Picmonic for having me. I hope that you learned something today, and I hope that I was helpful for you. I know how hard it is, and I've always wanted to give back. And I haven't been able to respond to a lot of DMs and stuff like that on Instagram, because my life just got so hectic with residency. But I just want to let you know, I really appreciate all y'all. I really appreciate the support on social media. I appreciate you coming to stuff like this, and I wish you really the best of luck. And finally, thank you, Picmonic. I really appreciate the opportunity. You're an amazing resource, an amazing company. I will continue to support you and continue to use your product to survive residency and beyond. All right. Thank you, everyone. I appreciate the love in the chat. Good luck. I'll be thinking of y'all.